Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm your host, Whitney Diffenderfer, and this week I am here with Patrice Veccione, nature expert, and also the author of our brand new book, Step into Nature, Nurturing Imagination and Spirit in Everyday Life. It's such a beautiful cover. I love it. Patrice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Whitney. I'm happy to be here.
I want to let everybody out there know that if you have a question, please use the Google Hangouts app, or you can use the hashtag BWPresents. And please be sure to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, Patrice, I know that we're going to do something special today, so why don't you let us know what that's going to be?
I've put together a slideshow with over 60 slides, mostly, yeah, I know, we're going to move rather quickly visually, and they're mostly from Jack's Peak Park where I walk, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, and also pictures of some of the art that I've made inspired by the natural world.
Awesome. Well, that sounds wonderful, especially considering most of us, I'm sure out there watching, we're all sitting in an office of some form. So I would love to have a little nature in my life today.
Good, you're going to get some. We're going to go on an imaginary walk.
Oh, great.
So are we ready to start?
Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Step into Nature is a book to support readers who want to enhance and deepen their imaginations and reboot their creative lives. I've found that time on the earth will do just that. If too many hours of your days are spent indoors, away from nature, join me to reignite your sense of wonder and step into nature. When you get out into the air, onto the earth, you'll find surprises are around each corner, and inspiration is everywhere. Whether you consider yourself an artist of whatever persuasion or not, we humans, by our very natures, are imaginative beings, and our daily lives are deepened by creative thinking. An active imagination can make most any experience better. It'll relieve boredom and expand one's sense of mystery. It's the key to play, even for those of us who may have put play aside for supposedly more important endeavors. Just how the imagination does what it does is mysterious and unpredictable. Time on the earth with an open mind and a curious heart can enliven and replenish us. And if we're to solve the problems of how to best care for the earth, we'd do well to explore new, innovative solutions. Time on the land, or out at sea, or down by the river can support that. Care to take a walk with me, right here and right now? Two simultaneous walks, actually, one into the world of nature, and a complementary one into the world of imagination. No need to tie your shoelaces or grab a hat. We'll travel via the paths of story and image, over dirt trails and painted ones, where we'll look up close at the earth and creative process. Just as nature can be heavily treed or vast and open, as paths on the earth may wind up and out of view, leading us to unexpected vistas, so can our imaginations. You'll need a few scraps of paper and a pen, as I'll offer suggestions to take the material I talk about further, to engage your own story through words or drawings. I'll pause for a moment so you can gather those items. Are you comfortable? Good. Then we'll begin, stopping along the way to view, ponder, and respond. My infatuation with the woods began with the most basic act. I bent to tie my shoes and placed one sneaker-clad foot in front of the other. Into the forest I walked along narrow, poison oak-bordered paths and on former logging roads, up hills, around bends, past trees and more trees, into sunlight, and more often into shadow and dappled darkness. I didn't set out to revive my imagination, didn't think my spirit would be restored, and had no idea that joy and inspiration would overcome me. I went in the woods near my Monterey home for exercise, enjoyed the air filling my lungs when I walked up hills, felt my head clear, became enchanted by the views. Over time, I became newly and deeply curious about the earth. Nature began working on me, and I began to change and grow. My perspective on the world and my own life shifted. I found possibility where there'd been none. Suddenly, I wanted to learn about that which had never held my attention before, from butterfly habitats to mountain lion hunting tactics. From that, art came. It was a natural progression, inspired by the conversations I was having with the earth. Making art, for me, that means writing prose and poetry and making collage, began to feel less effortful, and the call to it began to feel more authentic. Though art has been a primary part of my life for pretty much as long as I can remember, time in nature gives it a greater platform. The trees and the creatures whisper to me, the trails send up ideas, and the fresh air sends down inspiration. The poet John Ciardi said, "Love is a conversation." Art is a conversation too, one that by its nature is imbued with love. The act of making something isn't the conversation's initiation. Making art is always in response to something or someone. When we begin creating, we're continuing a conversation that's already begun, maybe just in our hearts, but one that's already started. When we finish something and we share it, the viewer or the reader extends that conversation farther. In this picture, might the pine cone have found itself a perfect perch? Look at this wet red poison oak leaf. Nature's creativity validates my own endeavors. If water finds an obstacle in its way, it goes around. To corral the bees into pollinating, flowers perform dazzling feats of design, of color, thusly ensuring their perpetuation. Birds call, and other birds come hither. The earth's bounty and beauty infuse my work. Returning home from a walk, pictures form in my mind that I rush to put down on paper. I began to wonder about the earth's way of doing things, and I wanted to try some of them out too. Might I write a poem that would make the staccato of raindrops against concrete? Could I layer hue upon hue in a collage like leaf mulch layered on the ground? Might I blossom like the hairy honeysuckle pictured here? I don't know why this honeysuckle is called hairy. It doesn't have really any hair on it unless you look really closely, as you can in this photograph, to see the little tiny bits of hair that come from the buds themselves.
Patrice?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the next pictures. The descriptions that you're giving are so beautiful. I just was curious if there's something awry with the technology.
Oh, perhaps there is. I don't know what that would be because I'm continuing to show the slideshow.
Okay.
So I don't know what's happening. Perhaps Cindy could help us.
Our producer is on the back end doing the technology fun things. So right now it's just showing the first slide.
I've shown 12 slides already. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what's happening.
Perhaps close the screen share and open it again.
Okay, let me see how to do that here.
Technology.
I'm going to end show, and I'm going to come back over here, and we're going to try this one more time. And I apologize to those of you who are viewing.
Just the descriptions of everything you're giving are so beautiful.
Well, I'd like you to all see the pictures. Can you, are you seeing anything now?
Yes, right now I'm seeing a beautiful painting of two birds.
Okay, well, perhaps we'll just keep going this way. Does it fill the
Yes.
screen for you?
It doesn't.
Okay,
Perhaps if
so let's just try this again. I'm going to try showing the slideshow again.
perfect.
And where are we? What are you seeing now?
It's still within the normal. It's not filling the screen. In that lower left-hand corner where it has the three options of. There's
How about
one
now? How are we now?
still not yet filling the screen. Those three lightened buttons at the bottom on the right, you might try clicking that one.
I don't. Okay, let's see here. I'm not seeing those buttons.
It kind of looks like a screen, like if you were to do a video showing, it looks like that.
Okay. Let's see here.
Sorry, folks, for taking care of the technical while we were on this. We just want to make sure that you can enjoy the beautiful scene that Patrice is painting for us.
And how about now?
It's still not full screen, but we do have the most updated slides, so we could just continue with that because you can definitely see them.
Okay, well, I apologize. I don't know why it's not working, but I think we should just keep going then.
Absolutely.
So look at this wet red poison oak leaf. Nature's creativity validates my own endeavors. If water finds an obstacle in its way, it goes around. To corral the bees into pollinating, flowers perform dazzling feats of color, thus ensuring their perpetuation. Here's what the honeysuckle I was talking about before, that if you can look up close enough, you'll see the hair on the buds themselves. And this is a collage that I made called Bird Collage. Nature has turned my writing and my art making upside down. Noticing connections between things makes leaps of imagination nearly effortless. Attention to detail and nuance have grown in me, both in the art I make and in my whole life. The boundaries of my curiosity have dropped away.
Patrice?
Yes.
We're still on the beautiful image of the two birds. You might just exit full screen mode on your side and see if that works.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Now what have you got?
Some beautiful purple flowers.
All right, well, let's go from here.
Perfect.
Out in the woods one day, for seemingly no reason, I stopped mid-step. It's odd how the eyes see before the brain knows what's being seen. Or was it a mystical occurrence? Had nature called my name? In the midst of the thick green foliage and twig cross brush, a single cobalt blue 5-petaled flower. It was the end of winter, but there, exactly when I needed it, a sign that spring was on her way. It was borage I was seeing. Time out on the earth has deepened my belief in the unexplainable. I hope you're seeing some feathers now, Whitney.
We are, definitely. They're beautiful.
Yeah, these are hawk feathers, and I can't tell you exactly what happened here before I arrived, but that's what I came to. I would guess a hawk lost its life that day. And why the feathers are arranged as they appear here, I don't know. One day I saw a cluster of bees gathering along a trail, making a soft collective buzz. I spotted their hole-in-the-ground hive but kept walking. Then curiosity nabbed me and I turned around to get a better look. Both bees and hive had disappeared. I walked back and forth on that same stretch of trail maybe a dozen times, and I never saw a single bee. Had they slipped into their hive, buttoned it up, and flown off in it to a safe place? That experience ruffled my thinking with wonder. I don't know who made this, but someone did and placed this artistic, almost kite-looking contraption along Pine Trail at my favorite park. Another day, this hut appeared in a pine grove. I ought to have brought my sleeping bag and tucked in for the night. We have become a people who place utmost faith in the rational mind at the cost of the creative mind. But we won't find all the answers we need via a linear and pragmatic route. Certainly not the most beautiful, unpredictable solutions. For the imagination to blossom, we need to think afresh. To learn how to best care for the earth and how to find the will to do so, it might serve us to ask previously unasked questions, to be more wholly aware, engage our senses and our spirits, honor our emotions, and put stock in the earth's wisdom. This is a recent photograph that I took just on a early spring day on a very unassuming portion of trail, and you can see a couple of flowers in bloom, and there are more on their way. One day I was out walking and I heard a squeaky sound in the brush. I stood still, listened. Then I heard another squeaky sound a little further down the trail. A mouse scampered out from the bushes. Aha! 2 mice were talking to each other. I think one mouse said, "Hey buddy, come over here, see what I've got." And the mouse I watched scurrying was the one who had replied, "I'm on my way over." Outdoors, imagination expands more easily. The unfiltered stimulation we receive from the earth is far more varied than most anything found between 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. Out on the land or at sea, our senses become easily engaged. The mind responds to the bends and twists of nature. Even on days when my imagination feels drier than a desert during drought, somewhere along the way what I see intrigues me, making my mind supple again. These are persimmons out in a different park, in a very wild place, not somewhere I anticipated seeing persimmons. When I began walking in the forest, it would never have occurred to me to make the universe my companion. But that's what the 17th century Japanese haiku master Basho suggested, and that by doing so my art might grow. So now let's put that paper and pen to use. All right, I'll give you a second to get those there. And let's consider our imaginations. I've found that through visualizing that capacity, we can grow it. I'll ask you a number of questions and respond to those that fit for you, writing down the first thought that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yep.
How big is your imagination? Is it tiny as a seed or wide as the ocean?
Should I write it down, or do you want me to say it?
Yeah, write it down. Write it down.
Okay.
And the next question, if your imagination had a shape, what shape would that be? If it weighed something in the physical world, would your imagination be light or would it be heavy? Where do you carry your imagination? In your heart, in your mind, in a back pocket, or in a wagon that you pull along no matter the terrain? So where do you carry your imagination? Does it have a color? If so, what color is it? Does it make a sound to get your attention, like the call of an exotic bird or that of a best beloved calling your name? So take just a moment now to look at your responses, and then we'll come back together in just one moment. We're going to jump into a second piece of writing. You could also draw your responses. So how do you experience the universe? Do you see it as a companion, as a home, as a distant, impersonal relative, as a foreign body? Take just a moment to jot down or draw a few quick impressions about your perceptions of the universe and your relationship with it. What images come first? Grab those. First thoughts are often our best thoughts. We'll take just a moment now. And let's come back together. What you've got in front of you is material you could return to whenever you like. You might find there's a story there or a poem or a painting that you'd like to further develop. So I'd like to invite you to email me your impressions. Email me what you've written or a photograph of what you've drawn, or post them on my Facebook page, Patrice Veccione Author. If you'd like to send them to my website directly, you could reach me at patriceveccione.com. That's PatriceVeccione.com. And I promise to respond as much as I can to anything you might like to send. This is a view of my favorite park, and you can see the Monterey fog settling down, or is it rising up? I'm not sure which it was doing that morning. This park, Jack's Peak, has about 900 acres, mostly thickly treed with Monterey pines and coastal oaks. There's about 9 miles of trails, but more if you count the paths that aren't officially in the park. Unfortunately, I do have to get in the car to get there, but it's only 10 minutes away. One of my favorite things about getting out into nature is that it doesn't require us going a long distance to go the distance. You don't have to drive to Yosemite or to Glacier Park to be in the presence of nature. Just a slice of blue sky, a square of dirt, a few sprouts of grass can be enough to free our thinking. Even a small nearby park is perfect. And take a walk while you're there. I've noticed that when my feet are in motion, my mind is in motion too, which frees it from its predictable constraints. And I get a little distance from responsibilities like bill paying and dinner making. Shortly after I began walking a few times a week, I noticed that the trees were speaking to me. Now, I'm not a Lulu, so they weren't actually talking to me, not the way humans speak, but I really did feel my imagination being directly fed by the trees. Sometimes they gave me poem possibilities, other times inspirations for new collages came, as if from out of the blue, or should I say, as if from out of the green and brown. This is my desk. I hate to admit it. But that's what it looks like much of the time. And you can see there my notebook in the middle of the desk. When I began writing Step into Nature, I increased the frequency of my walks, not only because nature was one of my subjects, but because in the woods, more than at this desk, ideas come with less reaching after. To catch them, to provide a place for the possibilities to land, I began to make notebooks. Some have pockets at the back to hold such small finds such as feathers. When we make something ourselves or personalize that which is store-bought, we imbibe it with the fingerprints of our own curiosity. So you also might like to make a small notebook to carry outside so that you too can be ready for the surprise arrival of your next idea, your next infinite possibility. Even the slightest glimmer of imaginative conjuring has enormous potential. Embellishing a notebook can be as simple as pasting a favorite photograph onto the front, or a small collage could be glued there, or one of your own drawings. You might scatter your best-loved quotes on the inside pages. I like adding fortunes from cookies, pale watercolor washes, or drawing frames to feature certain words. Here are workshop participants sitting in a pocket meadow, drawing and writing. One person alone, and here a mother and daughter writing together. The art you'll make, even the notes you'll take when out of doors, will be different from what you'll do inside. The aliveness of the earth contributes to your imagination. The fern in reflection is not the same fern as the one caught by sunlight that you see out when you are out in person on the land. When out walking, my to-do list tends to shrink, if not in length, then in primacy, altering my perspective on life. I can find myself suspended, much like this pine needle, having landed, seemingly about to do the splits without effort, on a slender branch. Or like this red poison oak leaf, amidst the plant's cross-hatched gray sticks. Wide and distant views may captivate. In the morning I saw 2 bears walking across the nearby valley. I was nothing if not taken, especially because where I live, we don't have bears. I had never seen bear anywhere near my home. But there in just past Jack's Peak Park, really, there were 2 bears, a mother and a cub. I have found that getting close to the earth's small parts, like these mushrooms, or a leaf, or a dusky-footed wood rat, deepen my awareness the most. Being close to that which I've never paid much attention to before, that which is easy to overlook, inspires me. And that requires slowing down, observing closely, not being consumed by yesterday or tomorrow. I've learned that it's best to bend down and lean into. And here's some of what there is to see. A vine's curly-Q springing stem looks much like an old-fashioned telephone cord, though green. Look here at the curling motion. There's last year's decomposing leaf, which is making way for this year's new one. The beetle's hard blue-black shell reminds me of the importance of not revealing everything. Much is held within his body's hard exterior, and his stalwart movement reinforces the value of determination. The trail where I took this photograph is most appropriately named Iris Trail in Jack's Peak Park. Here's a close-up interplay between leaf and light and shadow. Where I live in summer, as I said before, the mornings are often foggy, and that's the best time of day to see the intricacies of a spider's web. Here, immersed in her own world, the spider appears unbothered by my inquiry. Can you guess what this is? Not the pages of a book. These are the gills of a very large mushroom. It was a rainy day, and I had to lie down on the ground beneath the mushroom, looking up to get that photograph. Here, a banana slug feasts on a mushroom that would make us quite ill, the Amanita muscaria. Don't try that in your forest. I was made to wonder, might my art take on the shape of a dry leaf? Could it take on this shape? Could the art I make be berry red? Or could it have this shade of yellow? That's a sticky monkey flower. Looking up close at nature has increased my awareness of the up-close world in many environments, from my sister cats holding hands before a winter fire, to this oddity, a little flower found in a bathroom stall. So grab that piece of paper again and your pen. And now I'd like to ask you to make a list of everything that is close up to you, literally and emotionally, spiritually and artistically. Consider the aspects of nature, places on the earth that you enjoy experiencing, the minutiae, that which others might view as insignificant, perhaps the pebbles at your feet. Such a list can become the foundation for art you'll make, poems, stories, photographs. I like having such lists so that if I'm inclined to write or make a collage, but I'm not captivated by a particular idea, I have possibilities to turn to. So make a list of all the things that are close to you, artistically, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, or literally in nature or your environment. And we'll just take a moment to do this. And let's come back together. I know that's a list you probably just got started on, but it's something you can come back to at your own time, and you might want to tack that list up somewhere in your home to remind you of the things that are close to you. I used to think that artistic inspiration came only rarely, striking like a lightning bolt. But outdoors, I've discovered it's everywhere. In the furrows and burrows, caves and treetops, atop that far hill, on the undersides of leaves, and my favorite, in the sounds that small creatures make traveling through the brush. And here, inspiration in the droplets of water clustering on the white flower buds. About inspiration, the author Vladimir Nabokov said, "The pages are still blank, but there is a miraculous feeling of the words being there, written in invisible ink, clamoring to become visible. What just moments ago may have appeared ordinary is suddenly new and startling, and we wonder, how could I have missed that?" The feeling of being inspired is my most favorite way of feeling, ever. It's like being in love, only nobody else is there. Just me and the spirit of imagination. Imagination sends a bucket into the well of possibilities. Consider what inspires you. What makes your head spin? What takes your breath away? What causes you to want to respond? In the natural world, in your own life, in the news. Take just a moment to make a list of 5 things that inspire you, that make you feel most alive. And let's come back together. I would encourage you to find someone to share part of that list with, because there's something about sharing what inspires us that will further that inspiration when we find a good listening ear. Someone you trust, someone you know will be supportive. Here are some things I know about art making. For one, I know I love to have something in my hands to sew or to color. This is an embroidery I made as a wedding gift. So here are some other things I know about art making. You know more than you know you know. You know? The linear rational mind won't take you to all of what you know. If we believe we don't have what it takes to make the art we want to make, we diminish our possibility to make that very art. By withholding belief, we diminish who we are. I'd like to tell you a story about my student Kathleen. Years ago, her beloved brother died unexpectedly, and she couldn't remember any of the details about the day of his death. Understandably, having forgotten these details distressed her. She wanted to remember and to write the story of what had happened, but each time she tried, she found her mind empty. She was close to tears when she told me about this, saying, "The entire day is gone to me, and so is my brother." What I suggested Kathleen do sounded strange. I said, "Write down the words I don't remember, such as, I don't remember what day of the week it was, or I don't remember where I was when I got the news, nor who it was who told me. Just keep writing everything you don't recall, and you'll remember all you're ready to know." Kathleen was reluctant to take my suggestion, but I could only offer this suggestion to her because of my experience as both a writer and a teacher. I knew I was sending her down the right track. A few days later, she emailed me saying, "I remember." The entirety of the day and all its details had been returned to her. And if you pick up a copy of my book, Step into Nature, you can find the poem that she wrote, in which she remembered all about what she thought was absent from her memory. Here are a few other things about art and art making that I'm confident of. The world is made of stories. If you don't tell your story in whatever form, your story will never be told. No one else can do it. Not even somebody who was there beside you all along. Their story is their story. You're the only one who can tell yours. Inspiration is available to all of us, and you don't need to feel inspired to begin making art. Begin, and the inspiration will follow. This is a collage I made from an old cigar box. It's called Forest Honeymoon, and I'm happy to say it just sold at my last art show. You can see the old couple, well, they're not old, but the photograph sure is, and above them the forest I imagined them being in. Here is a tiny ballerina dancing with her brown pony in the forest. I set them up out there and then took a series of photographs. So here are some images of art that I've made, things that happened before I got home, but mostly things that happened once I was in my studio. This picture is called "The Young Bride Whispers Secrets to Her Groom." Has my love of nature gotten the best of me? Fear is sometimes present when I'm alone in the woods, but the more I walk, the less I'm afraid. I wanted to play with that bugaboo emotion in this picture called "Trouble in the Greeny, Greeny Woods." The young princesses wish to save the princely hummingbird from the crocodile's jaws. Sometimes I feel a significant distinction between the human realm and the world of nature, but I think really that's an illusion. This picture, combining both, is called "Break Free." This picture is of a very tarnished spoon in which I placed a small broken eggshell in the bowl of the spoon. I'd found it while out walking at my park. Then I replaced it. Gone was the eggshell, and in its place an acorn. Same spoon, two different stories. This is a nicho, which is the Spanish word for nest. And in this one, I nested dry Monterey pine needles. And here, in another, assorted lichen I'd found at the forest. Time in nature has changed my sense of scale. In this collage called The Approach of Summer, the woman rides on a bird's back, carrying an enormous letter to its destination. My father died recently, and I knew I needed to make art to give my grief a place to settle, to live with the grief in a way other than tears and conversation. I had a photograph of my old pop, he died at 93, that I thought I'd use as the basis of a collage, but each time I picked it up I felt paralyzed, simply too sad to respond. There was a piece of orange paper on the table, and beside it one comprised of these red circles that you see. An idea came, and I got out my edging scissors and began to cut up the red circle paper. I glued those shapes onto the orange paper and added more shapes. Set this on top of some orange felt and began stitching the collage, quilting it, paper and fabric together. Doing this was incredibly soothing. Later, I realized that in addition to calming myself, I'd begun to engage in the process of finding a new order of things, deconstructing one order, which included my father alive, and creating in my own hand another, one in which my father was gone. Not seemingly a grief picture, but one instead meant to heal sorrow. This picture's not finished yet, but nor is my sorrow. I hope that you have enjoyed this walk into imagination and nature. If you begin walking in the woods, along the beach, across the plains, tucking a notebook into your pocket before you go, let yourself notice the things you're inclined toward. Have faith in your imagination. You'll find it's wider and deeper, more raucous and splendid than you may have ever believed. You'll be led to that which you could never have anticipated. Your story will grow to delight and amaze you. And there's the end of our show, the slideshow part, and I hope I am back with you.
Yes.
Good.
Patrice, thank you so much. That was gorgeous.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Whitney.
It makes me want to go grab, for some reason, I've taken a colored pencil class before, and I've done just pencil drawings, but it makes me want to go grab oil paints.
Yeah, even acrylics are easy to use, you know.
Yeah. Just bright colors and lots of quick, and I don't know. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad we sort of worked out the technical glitch.
Yes. We could see the pictures, and that's all that mattered.
Okay, good.
Well, the one question that I have for you, and you kind of touched on it with one of the collages that you with the alligator, the crocodile who's coming after the hummingbird that you were setting free, or that the two princesses were setting free.
Right.
A lot of people, myself included, have a fear of nature. Like I have somewhat an unreasonable fear of bees and other things that bite and poison oak, and all those things that could harm me in my head. How did you get past your fear?
Well, you sound just like me.
Okay.
Before I began walking on a regular basis about 7.5, 8 years ago. And the first day I went out to the woods, I was afraid of two things. I wasn't afraid of bees, but I was afraid of mountain lions and crazy men.
Okay.
Not necessarily in that order either. And I pulled my car into the parking lot, and a man came up to me, and he looked crazy. And he was rapping on my window, and I rolled the window down, and I said yes, and he was so excited. He wasn't crazy. He was just excited. And he said, "You won't believe it, but I've walked all over the world, and never until today have I seen a mountain lion." So that to me was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Turn around and go home? That's what I wanted to do. Instead, I said, "Which way was your lion?" And he pointed, and I took a hike in the opposite direction. Now, of course, his lion could have moved, right? You know, I mean, they travel a lot of distance. But I knew if I didn't go for a walk that day, I would never go for a walk alone. And I wanted to be alone, and here's why. Time in nature alone feeds the psyche for me like nothing else ever has. I was not a nature girl. I'm from New York City. I like high heels, I like the city life, but I'm a convert to the natural world. And I took my fear with me on a hike 4 to 5 days a week for 6 months. I was afraid. I would hear a leaf falling and I would jump. A squirrel in the tree, I would make a little yelp. And then what happened is eventually my fear got tired of me because nothing bad happened. I did get a bad case of poison oak. I got sick, but I got over it. The scar on my leg is gone. Nothing. The bees, they don't want to bite. They actually they're not really. That's the thing, I think, Whitney. Nature's not really very interested in us. We're interested in us. You're interested in you, and I'm interested in me. And the natural world is doing its thing oblivious to us. So unless we threaten something, unless you come up close and you're about to stomp on a beehive, or unless you're like me and you're an idiot and you walk right on the poison oak without knowing it, the things of nature, even the mountain lion, the guy walked right by a mountain lion. I looked at the statistics. Very few people are attacked by mountain lions. I forget, it's in my book, the statistic is in there. I forget what it is. But it's not, our fear is out of proportion with the reality of the natural world. And I think it helps to remember that, to go out for 5 minutes alone. Anything bad happen? No? Great. Go home. Have a cup of tea. Pat yourself on the back. And next time, go out for 10 minutes. And do it a gradual thing. The first walk I went on was a half an hour walk. It wasn't long. And I was proud of myself. We come from nature. That's our original home as human beings. We don't come from offices and apartments. And so we're returning. So I think what happens is a part of us gets called back. When we go out there, we get called back. And that calling is larger than the fear. I hope you and other people who are watching and listening this afternoon will go out and let me know if you are able to conquer that fear, not with not with a club, but just with time spent there and finding out that the fear is incorrect.
Well, and I want to let everybody know, I did show it at the beginning of the show, and it was on your slideshow as well, Patrice, but I want everybody to know that they can get your brand new book, this beautiful book with amazing content. You referenced it a couple of times in your slideshow, but you can get it for 30% off if you go to beyondword.com/step into nature, all one word. So you can jump on there and grab it, and you can start your own journey. And I love what you say in the introduction, that this is it's meant to be taken with you, and you're even saying, like, use mud as a bookmarker and
right.
Engage with it and have it be a part of your daily practice of going into nature. And my question, because I'm thinking about where I live and, of course, what's feasible time-wise and all those limitations that we put on ourselves, but does it include just walking around your neighborhood, or do you need to go to some place that's really secluded and like a park?
Well, if you look outside your window and you look up, that's nature. The sky is nature. The air we breathe is nature. Even the little weeds, struggling to get through the cracks in the sidewalk, nature. And I happen to know that near your office there, I have been taken, my very fine editor at Beyond Words, Anna Nowak, when I came to visit, took me on a walk to a park, not a big park, but a small park right outside your door. And so we don't need to go far. You don't need special boots. You don't need to have a raincoat that's fancy. You just need to go outside.
And I've found that we do have we have a nature path out behind us, and I was just thinking about a walk that I went on yesterday, and I didn't go by myself. I went with one of my coworkers, and I was thinking that I wasn't connecting with nature. I was connecting with her. That was great, but not necessarily connecting with nature. So obviously step one is to go by yourself. Is there anything else that you really need to do in order to kind of kickstart your connection?
Well, bring a notebook. Okay. Like I was talking about in the slideshow, I hope that picture showed for everybody. I just, I have them made for me at my local coffee shop, and I personalize them, as I said, because then that makes me feel like it's mine. And put it in your back pocket and pull it out, and just the more you write what you see, the more you see. And so it's not fancy. Your kids are good enough.
Yeah, I have my little ballet flats on today, and I'm thinking I'm going to go take a walk. And I have one of the beautiful notebooks that you made for all of us, so I'll take that with me.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And do you find that art and you mentioned this as well, it's like it presents itself in several different forms, so it's not just writing? Because for me, I find that I tend to get really analytical when I'm writing and don't really let loose, or is that something that maybe will change over time as I continue to write and work in nature?
It will if you write what you observe outside, then you're not analyzing it. Stay in the present tense, stay in the physical world, and bring in the emotional world, but leave the intellectual world behind. Leave the mind that wants to analyze and figure it out, because your imagination doesn't need to figure anything out. It will come to its own conclusions if you have faith in it and you use it. So if you just write leaf, frog, butterfly, twigs, trees, you're writing what's right there. You're not infiltrating. You're not taking time to question what you're seeing, and you will expand that. But also, not everybody is meant to write. I chose to write because it was the hardest thing I could possibly do. Because as a young woman, a girl in high school, I was terrified of writing. And I was unwilling to be afraid of something that I love, because I love to read. And so I decided to change that. And over time, I was successful. And this is not my first book, so I've been successful at it for a while. So, I think that it is something that can transform. But I think go outside and sing. Go outside and paint. It doesn't have to be that one form.
That's awesome. And you say singing, and singing is really my favorite art form. So yes, I love to sing.
Outside is the only place I will sing. And it's, it's lovely to sing out there. And sometimes you'll find the birds will sing back. Literally. I have had many conversations, even with my husband one day. He said, "You and that bird are talking to each other." He said, "You're right, we are." It's amazing.
It sounds very Maria, Sound of Music type.
Oh, yes, very. Yeah, I didn't have that beautiful dress on, though. I had on sweats.
Well, I suppose whatever you're comfortable in, right?
Exactly, that's right.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I love and one of the features that you do have in your book is the Cabinet of Curiosities, where you have all sorts of different exercises, like the ones that you led us through on our walk here earlier. And it really did feel like a walk. That was wonderful. And it was really surprising, because when you said, just write down the things that first come up for you, the things that did come up, I started to judge and analyze them, and was kind of like, no, that's stupid. And then I was like, no, she said the first thing that comes to mind. And so I ended up like, my imagination would be a rainbow.
Wow, what an imagination that is. It's vast, it's colorful, and it's available.
Yes. Yeah, and I carry it in my heart, apparently.
In your heart. There's no better place to carry a rainbow. You make me want to say something, though, Whitney. I want to make sure people are aware. Many of us have an internal critic, and that's the part of you that was analyzing you as you were responding to your own responses. And the internal critic is helpful, but not in the creative process, not in inception. The critic is great later, when you want to look back and you want to think about what you've done, and you want to know if you're writing something, should it be a comma or a semicolon? Should I start a new paragraph here? That's when the critic needs to come in, and it works for you. The critic gets confused. It thinks we work for it. That's not true. The critic is your employee. And it needs to be, that perspective needs to be kept. So that's, yes, not only take the first thought, but also tell that part of you, you can come back later when I need your help, but right now I don't need your help.
That's fantastic. I love thinking about him as my employee, because sometimes it really does feel like he's running. Apparently it's a male in me.
Well, that's another thing to do, which I did years ago, is to visualize your internal critic. My internal critic is a size 3. I could give up eating until I died. I'll never be a size 3. She wears Armani stiletto high heels. They hurt my feet. So, imagine, and everybody watching, imagine your internal critic. Who is that part of you? And by imagining it, you can separate it from yourself, which is very helpful. So yours is a he.
Apparently. And I see like plain white shirt, skinny black tie, a clipboard.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's judging and measuring, I can tell.
Yes, very much so. Taking lots of notes that I can't see.
Yes, you don't. You can tell him he can leave his clipboard at home.
Okay. I'll take my notebook. He can leave his clipboard.
Exactly. There you go. Perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Patrice, thank you so much. We are coming up on the end of our hour. One last question that I wanted to ask is, what drove you outside? Like, what had you go on that first walk and be so determined to go on subsequent walks?
Well, I had been a distance bicyclist before that, and when I turned 50, I rode my bike 100 miles, and that's the last time I've ever been on my bike because I have arthritis in my neck. I didn't want to go inside to exercise. I wanted to be outdoors, and so it was really a very mundane thing, simple as that.
Huh. You just wanted to go out and get some exercise, and you discovered a whole new world.
And I wrote a book.
You did.
I published it. So
yes, we did. And it's beautifully written. Our editor, who you mentioned earlier, Anna, she just is deeply in love with it. And this book has been flying off the shelves. It's just so exciting to see how excited people are at the message that you've got in here. So just one more time to let people know, you can get it at a 30% discount on our website, and you can go to www.beyondword.com/step-into-nature. The whole title just squished all together into one. There's one more view of that gorgeous, gorgeous cover. But Patrice, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that walk. I love those pictures. There's just those things that if you were just rushing through or even just going on a walk with somebody else, you would have missed so easily.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And I just want to let everybody know we've got a great season upcoming, and please check our website, www.beyondword.com/presents, to find out who we've got. So we will see you again soon. Thank you so much.